Hey guys, tonight we trail shadows through the Medinas of Casablanca, where the breeze smells faintly of cumin and car exhaust, and secrets change hands faster than mint tea cools. You walk with steady steps past stucco walls and chipped paint, under blinking neon signs half dead from the desert air, eyes fixed on a man ahead, well dressed, limp free, but carrying the weight of 1,000 lies. His name? Depends who's asking. His job? Also flexible. But tonight, you know one thing for certain. You're not just following him. You are him. You're a Moroccan, or an Israeli, or both. It's hard to keep track. It's the 1960s, and your shadow doesn't stretch alone in the moonlight anymore. It's got company, the Mossad. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're still awake, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm always curious where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were born in the old quarter of Casablanca, just off Rue de l'Église, the kind of place where bread is still baked in clay ovens and kids play soccer with anything remotely spherical, including once a dried cow's bladder. Your mother is Moroccan to the bone, speaking in proverbs, always worried you'll grow up too French. Your father? Absent. Let's just say complex and move on. You grow up bilingual, bicultural, and suspicious of most grown-ups. The world tells you what to be, a good Muslim, a loyal Moroccan, a decent student, but already you're practicing lies. Not evil lies, more like social grease. Yes, I did my homework. No, I wasn't at the cinema. Sure, I believe in God. It comes easy. Your city hums with contradictions. Casablanca is a post-colonial stew, simmering with leftover French bureaucracy, Arab nationalism, and Jewish emigration. The Jewish quarter, Mela, is shrinking. People whisper that more and more families are disappearing to Israel, but not all vanish willingly. You don't understand the politics yet. All you know is that secrets get you places, and people pay well for silence. Then comes the war, Six-Day War, 1967. Morocco, like many Arab states, breaks ties with Israel. And suddenly, every Jewish family left behind becomes a curiosity, a potential traitor, or worse. The streets feel tighter. You hear stories of the Mukhabarat, the Moroccan secret police, watching, recording, blacklisting. But you slip through unnoticed. You're 20 now, working as a low-level courier for a textile merchant. You deliver bolts of fabric across the city, sometimes to shady hotels. One day, you hand off a package to a man in a dark suit with an accent you can't quite place. Israeli, maybe? He looks you over once, twice, then smiles and asks, "Do you believe in Zion?" You don't answer. That's the first test. Fail, and he'll disappear. Pass, and, well, you're about to find out. The next day, he's waiting again, this time in a quieter spot. A cafe with dusty fans and even dustier sugar bowls. You sit, he talks. You nod, say little. Eventually, he offers you a job, not as a spy. Not yet. A helper, he says, a listener. Your job will be to report things, people, patterns, just casual everyday espionage. You say yes, mostly out of curiosity. This is where your real training begins, not in a Mossad office with fluorescent lights and slide projectors. No, it starts in your own life. You learn to notice who's tailing you. Not paranoia, just observation. You memorize license plates, recognize accents, study body language like a soap opera addict. You grow an instinct. Danger has a smell, like burning rubber and sweat. And then there's the test that changes everything. You're asked to smuggle something. Not drugs, not even weapons. A microfilm, smaller than a raisin. You're to pass it to a man in Rabat. No questions asked. You hesitate, but something in you wants to see how far this road goes. You wear your cleanest shirt, take the train, act casual. Everything goes to plan, until it doesn't. Two plainclothes officers stop you at the station. Random search, they say. Your throat tightens. You start sweating. But then, one of them laughs, pats you down in the wrong place, and lets you go. You didn't flinch. You passed. The Mossad man contacts you that night. This time, it's not in a cafe. It's in the back of a butcher's shop. Blood on the floor, flies in the air, smell of lamb fat thick as soup. He says you're ready. But to continue, you'll need to leave Morocco. Temporarily. You'll train abroad, become someone else. Maybe Israeli, maybe French, maybe something in between. He looks at you like a gambler reading his cards. You'll never go back to the old you, he says. Are you sure? You say yes, but your stomach flips. Historians still argue whether Mossad truly targeted Moroccan Muslims for deep cover work, or if your case was a rare exception. Some say it was desperation. Israel needed better intel in North Africa. Others suggest it was genius. After all, who better to fool the Arab world than someone who was the Arab world? One quirky detail? The Mossad didn't just teach you to fake identities, they had you read Hebrew cookbooks. Apparently, nothing breaks cover faster than mispronouncing shakshuka. You learn to chop onions the Israeli way, eat falafel without wincing, and act like you were born under a different sun. You still remember the first time you saw Tel Aviv: flat rooftops, palm trees, the soft whine of mopeds, and a city that smells like beach air and engine oil. It's nothing like Casablanca, and yet oddly familiar. Here, you're no longer just a man. You're a project, a tool, a test case for an intelligence agency willing to bet the house on one Moroccan courier who said yes to the wrong man with the right smile. And you're starting to like it. You sip bitter coffee on a plastic chair in a rented apartment in Herzliya, your new temporary home. Outside, waves break lazily against the shoreline. Inside, your head is bursting with names, phrases, and invented childhood memories. You've been given a new life, complete with a forged birth certificate, school records, and a fabricated crush on a girl named Tamar from 3rd grade. Apparently, she had a lisp. You're expected to recall this casually, convincingly. Your Mossad handlers don't shout. They don't threaten. They teach. Patiently, disturbingly calmly. You are their slow-burning investment, and they're not rushing to cash out. Your new identity? David. Or sometimes Daniel, depending on the mission. You're supposed to be of Moroccan Jewish descent, a returning Israeli who grew up speaking Arabic at home, but also fluent in French thanks to a Parisian stepfather, also fictional. This patchwork heritage makes you just slippery enough to slide into most situations. The language drills are brutal. You speak Arabic, sure, but now you must speak it wrong, with an Israeli accent. You're French? Too perfect. You're told to sprinkle in bad slang and a nasal Tel Aviv drawl. Hebrew becomes your new brainstem, whether you like it or not. Every time you mess up a word, your teacher, an ex-radio announcer turned language coach, throws a stale pita at you. You start dreaming in stuttered Hebrew. Your apartment isn't bugged. They say it's part of the trust experiment. That, or it's bugged very well. You practice lies in the mirror, test smiles, learn to shapeshift from nervous courier to cocky expat. The transformation is slow but visible. Even your posture changes. Chest out, chin up, fewer apologies. One rainy morning, a man named Reuven shows up, bald, polite, too quiet. You're told he's your primary handler from now on. He doesn't shake your hand, just sits down and says, "So, why do you hate the Egyptians?" You blink. It's not a real question, it's a prompt. You're expected to reply like your new self. So you lean back and mutter something about Nasser's arrogance, the humiliation of the 6-Day War, and your family's suffering under Arab regimes. You sprinkle in some generic Zionist conviction. Reuven nods. He says, "Not bad. Now say it again, but like you mean it." This becomes your life. Every day, a new scenario. You're introduced to actors pretending to be customs officials, embassy staff, or Syrian agents. They grill you, question your story, bait you. You slip up once, call your fake mother by the wrong name, and you're forced to write 100 pages about her life, where she shops, what she eats, who her cousin married. It's not paranoia, it's muscle memory. You're programming your brain for long-term deceit. You learn how to flirt convincingly, how to gamble without sweating, how to walk through a border checkpoint with a packet of microfilm wedged behind your molar. You learn how to die, too, or at least how to fake your own death. They even teach you how to cry on cue in case your cover requires grief. Reuven brings in an expert in body language. He's a wiry man with too many bracelets and the unnerving habit of popping up behind you without warning. He films you constantly, then plays it back in slow motion, pointing out every tick and twitch. "See this," he says, pausing the tape. "This is guilt, and this," he rewinds, "this is panic." You begin to hate your own face, but you also begin to control it. Historians still argue whether these training techniques bordered on psychological torture, or if they were simply necessary in an era of Cold War shadows and shifting sands. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, right where your mind begins to blur the line between truth and persona. You meet others like you, trainees. Some are former soldiers. Some criminals with clean slates offered in exchange for service. One guy claims he used to be a belly dancer in Algiers. He teaches you how to make an entrance without drawing attention. Another is a former safecracker. He shows you how to pick locks with a bobby pin and a matchstick. Everyone's got a past. No one talks about it. Except one night during a blackout, you sit on the roof with a cigarette and ask Reuven, "Why me?" He exhales, "Because you already lie for free. We just taught you to invoice it." A quirky moment? You're told to start following Israeli fashion trends. You scoff, spy work is spy work, right? But no, your shoes, your haircut, even the brand of cigarettes you smoke, they all have to match the illusion. You spend half a week arguing over whether a Mossad agent would wear button-downs with floral print. Consensus depends on the city. Eventually, you're given your first real identity kit: passport, business cards, tax documents, rental agreements, all in the name of a fake Israeli expat named David Cohen. You're told to keep it on you at all times, even when you sleep. One handler tells you, if you wake up in a burning building, save the passport first. And then comes your first mission briefing: a hotel room in Jerusalem, heavy curtains, cold coffee. You sit with Reuven and two others, all three of them speaking in calm, cryptic phrases. You nod, pretending to understand. The details are vague, but the message is clear. You're going back to North Africa. Not as yourself, not even as David, as someone entirely new. You feel your heartbeat slow, not speed up weirdly, but slow, like your body already knows it's about to be piloted by someone else. Someone braver, someone cooler, someone who can lie without blinking. You're handed a folded sheet of paper. Memorize it. Burn it. You do. And just like that, you stop being Moroccan or Israeli or anything in between. You become the mask. Awaiting continue. Your flight into Europe is unremarkable, which is exactly what you want. The airport buzzes with tourists lugging guidebooks and tired toddlers. You pass through security like a phantom, neither noticed nor ignored. That's the art. You don't disappear. You belong. You're just another Israeli businessman traveling to Paris to meet clients. The most dangerous lies are the ones buried in 99% truth. You land at Orly Airport under a slate gray sky. The air smells like espresso and old rain. Your suitcase is impeccably packed, of course. 2 changes of clothing, a briefcase, and a coded message scrawled on the inside flap of a toothpaste box. Classic spy cliché. You chuckle to yourself, a tiny moment of levity in a job that rarely laughs back. Your new apartment is in the 14th arrondissement, near Montparnasse, the kind of place with creaky floors and an old concierge who asks too many questions. You charm her with compliments and chocolate. That's your first field test. Adapting. Within 3 days, she's defending you from nosy neighbors like a bulldog in slippers. Your target? An Algerian exile with pan-Arabist sympathies and a love for French poetry. He's a mid-level player, but has contacts with Egyptian diplomats and a cousin in Syrian intelligence. Mossad suspects he's helping fund operations against Israel from the comfort of Parisian cafes. Your job is simple: get close, gather intel, and stay invisible. You meet him at a bookstore. Total accident, except it isn't. You've been studying his habits for days. He comes every Friday at 11 a.m., browses the same section: philosophy, post-colonial thought, banned Arab authors. You walk in, pick up a book you barely understand, and say something about Frantz Fanon that sounds intelligent. He replies. You bond over your shared exile. Within a week, you're friends. Within 2, you're drinking mint tea in his apartment, nodding sympathetically as he rants about Israel's imperialist machine. You play the role well. A Moroccan Jew bitter at Zionist discrimination. It's a niche story, but plausible. You say you left Israel disillusioned, that you're seeking new alliances. You roll your eyes when he suggests you return. You even sprinkle in a little conspiracy theory, just enough to make you credible without tipping into absurdity. He opens up slowly, and you learn quickly. Names, venues, who's funding what, where the meetings happen. Some of the intel is vague, some terrifyingly specific. One night, you hear him mutter a phrase in Arabic under his breath that makes your blood run cold. Al-Mukawama al-Musalla, armed resistance. He's not just talking, he's financing cells. You record everything in microdots hidden under postage stamps and send them through neutral intermediaries. The system works like a ghost network. A coded nod here, a scratch on a mailbox there. You never speak your secrets. You embed them in shadows. Still, you feel the tension building. You start scanning for tails, listening for footsteps behind you. A man in a tan coat appears too often at your favorite cafe. A woman on the metro seems to smile too knowingly. Are they watching? Or is your own mind now your worst enemy? Historians still argue whether Mossad's Paris operations in the 60s were primarily intelligence gathering or low-key sabotage. Some claim entire networks were dismantled thanks to agents like you. Others argue the success stories were exaggerated to protect the failures. As usual, the truth is buried in the classified files. Meanwhile, you start noticing inconsistencies in your own performance. You forget your fake birthday once during a casual dinner conversation and cover it with a joke. You sleep badly. You keep one eye open, always. You think about Casablanca, not the city, the movie. How romantic it made all this seem. We'll always have Paris, Bogart says. Yeah, well, you'd like to always have your spleen. You begin to fantasize about disappearing again, not as part of a mission, but for real. Find a quiet town. Teach history, grow a beard, tell nobody anything, ever again. Then you meet someone. She's a translator. French Arabic, works with NGOs, kind eyes, wears too many scarves. You pretend to be a businessman interested in sponsoring cultural programs. You don't expect to like her. But you do, and that's a problem. You start seeing her more often, despite the little voice in your head that screams, don't. Idiot, don't. She has a cat named Ibrahim. She listens when you speak. She makes fun of your accent and helps you correct it. Not realizing, of course, that the accent itself is fake. You want to tell her everything. You don't tell her anything. A quirky tidbit? You spend an entire evening with her trying to make mumsimen, a kind of Moroccan flatbread. You ruin the first 3 batches, burn the 4th, and finally produce one that is edible, if you drown it in honey. You laugh, really laugh, for the first time in months. That night, you dream you've told her everything. In the dream, she walks away. You wake up sweating, angry at yourself. Still, the mission continues. You discover that your target is planning to attend a conference in Geneva. Unofficial, off the books, but key figures from multiple Arab nationalist movements will be there. The Mossad is thrilled. You're given clearance to follow. Not interfere, just observe. Photograph, if possible. Collect names, details. You board the train to Geneva with a camera hidden in a hollowed-out book. You feel calm, focused. The persona clicks into place. You are David, the disillusioned Israeli, or Daniel, or whomever you have to be. You're good at this. Too good, maybe. And as the French countryside blurs past, green and endless, you start to wonder if the real you is still back in Casablanca, or if he ever existed at all. Geneva greets you with cold stone buildings, still lakes, and the unnerving cleanliness only neutral countries seem to pull off. You check into a modest hotel under your alias, David Cohen, textile trader, and immediately get to work. You scan the lobby for familiar faces. A few known Algerian exiles, a Jordanian academic who definitely isn't just an academic, and a man you only know by his Mossad code name, Marble. You don't speak to Marble. That's the rule. A glance is enough. He nods imperceptibly as he walks past with a conference tote bag swinging from his wrist. Inside? Probably a dossier. Maybe just granola bars. You'll never know. The unofficial conference happens under the cover of a cultural seminar. The agenda reads Cross-Cultural Dialogue in the Mediterranean, but everyone knows that's code for let's grumble about Israel without getting arrested. Speakers pontificate about pan-Arabism, colonial trauma, and what they call Zionist aggression. You take notes, discreet photos, and fake a yawn whenever someone says anything too fiery. You slip into a side session where things get more real. Money is discussed. So are names. You record audio with a device hidden in your belt buckle. It picks up most of it, though you'll have to play it back slowly later. Some accents blur like fog. A delegate from Libya mentions a possible shipment through Tunisia. That perks your ears. You mark it. During lunch, you pretend to be bored. You joke about how hard it is to get kosher food in Switzerland. The man next to you laughs and clinks his glass to yours. He's Saudi, you think. His Rolex is real. His disdain for Jews is also real. You nod and smile, swallowing both your couscous and your disgust. And yet something inside you begins to bend. Not break. Not yet. But bend. You used to see this as a chessboard. Players, moves, strategy. Now you're seeing faces. The passion in their voices isn't just rhetoric. Some of them believe deeply. Some are dangerous, but some are just tired. Men who want to return home, women who lost sons to wars they never chose. You record them, betray their trust, but you're starting to wonder what any of this is fixing. Historians still debate whether these small-scale, informal summits actually achieved anything. Some argue they were breeding grounds for future conflict. Others say they humanized opposing sides. In your experience, both are probably true. People are messy that way. You submit your findings through dead drops, a folded hotel brochure with a smudge of pink lipstick, left behind a loose brick in the wall near the park. Classic stuff. You're starting to feel like a paperback spy novel. Only you sweat more and sleep less. On your final day, something goes wrong. You see your Parisian friend, the Algerian exile. You thought he was still in France. But there he is, across the square, speaking with a man who has his back to you. You start to walk the other way, but the Algerian turns. He sees you. Just a second. Maybe two. His eyes narrow. You tilt your head, act confused, pretend not to recognize him. He doesn't call out. You don't breathe until you're inside a bakery, buying pastries you don't want. Your hands shake as you pay. Back at your hotel, you pack fast. You text a single word to your handler using the encrypted system. Compromised. Response, confirmed. New exfil instructions. You don't go to the airport, too obvious. Instead, you take a rental car south, driving into France through the mountains. The border guard checks your documents, barely glances at you. He's more interested in a couple smuggling cigarettes 2 cars back. Still, your heart thumps like a failing motor. Halfway to Marseille, you stop at a roadside inn. The place is empty, the staff indifferent. You sit by the window, watching the trees sway like they know something. You're not sure if you're being followed. You're not even sure if you're following yourself anymore. That night, as you lie in the creaky bed, you hear footsteps in the hallway. You freeze. The footsteps stop outside your door. Silence. A knock. You don't move. Then a voice says, "Housekeeping." You wait until they're gone. You don't sleep. A quirky moment, the next morning, you brush your teeth and accidentally use shoe polish instead of toothpaste. In your haze, you laugh so hard you cry. That's the first real emotion you've felt in days. You drive the rest of the way in silence. Back in France, you receive new instructions. You're to head to Marseille's port district and meet a contact named Yosef at a seafood stall. No talking, just a bag exchange. You'll find a new passport inside. You do as told. The man at the stall hands you a bag with grilled sardines. Inside the bag, a paper envelope slick with fish oil. You open it in a dingy bathroom stall. New passport, new name. Not David, not Daniel. Now, you're Ezra Ben Ami. Again, a Moroccan Jew. Again, a fabricated life. You stare at the photo. You're getting better at recognizing yourself in strangers. Rovin calls you that night. A rare call. You did good, he says. We got what we needed. You want to ask what that was. You don't. Take 2 weeks, he says. Relax. Be no one. You hang up and sit on your hotel bed. The mattress is hard. The room smells like fried onions. You look in the mirror, and for the first time, you realize you can't remember your real name without thinking twice. The sea air in Marseille has a weight to it. Salty, sun-baked, faintly industrial. You lean on the railing of a rooftop terrace, looking out over rusted cranes and fishing boats with peeling paint. And for a moment, you pretend you're just a man on holiday. No aliases, no microfilm, no enemies. But then your hand brushes the envelope in your jacket, and the illusion slips like water through fingers. Your next destination is Tangier. Officially, you're traveling there to open a textile trading route. Unofficially, you're slipping back into a city you were warned never to return to. But this isn't Casablanca. Tangier is different. It's always been different. A melting pot of smugglers, writers, diplomats, and con artists. People come here to hide, to reinvent, to forget. And you, oddly enough, fit right in. You arrive by ferry, discreet, low-key. The kind of transport that doesn't log names with too much scrutiny. The moment your foot touches Moroccan soil again, something shifts in you. A smell you hadn't realized you missed. Bread and citrus, dust and diesel. Your first instinct is fear. Second instinct, nostalgia. Third, regret. That's new. You're picked up by a local Mossad contact, a barber by day. He drives you through back alleys and side streets, the city buzzing past in chaotic rhythms. You pass street vendors frying sardines over open fires, veiled women balancing baskets, and kids chasing a soccer ball made of rags. And all of it feels so painfully familiar, like a dream you thought you made up. Your mission: Attend a wedding. Yes, a real wedding. Your cousin's, in fact. The one who almost recognized you years ago in Paris. The one with the sharp eyes and sharper memory. You begged Mossad to send someone else. Rovin just laughed and said, consider it a test of your script writing. You don traditional Moroccan attire, djellaba, slippers, head covering. It fits better than it should, like your body remembers. At the wedding, you blend into the crowd of relatives, distant uncles, giggling aunts. Laughter flows, music pounds, the scent of tagine fills the air. You want to relax, and you almost do, until your cousin pulls you aside. I've seen you before, he says, voice low. In Paris, you were with... He trails off. He doesn't say who. He doesn't have to. You freeze. Blood rushes to your ears. Every exit in the courtyard seems too far away. The drums throb like a countdown. You smile. You shrug. You say, lots of people look like me. Even my mother used to confuse me with that singer. What's his name? The one who sings off-key. Your cousin stares. And then he laughs. A full belly laugh. He punches your shoulder and calls you a liar. You always were one, he says. You raise your glass to that and hope he's drunk enough to forget this whole thing by morning. Historians still argue whether Mossad agents were ever truly safe in post-colonial Morocco, even those with dual identities. Some claim a quiet agreement existed between Israeli intelligence and the Moroccan monarchy. Others say agents like you were entirely expendable, chess pieces moved without permission. That night, after the wedding, you can't sleep. Your old room, your actual old room, is as you remember it. The cracked ceiling, the faded football poster. Even the creaky floorboard that squeaked under your third step from the door. You lie on the stiff mattress and stare into the dark, wondering what would have happened if you'd just stayed. Married a local girl, opened a shop, argued about football instead of border policies. A quirky moment. You find your old diary under the bed. Pages full of dramatic teenage scribbles, dreams of becoming a musician, doodles of camels wearing sunglasses. You laugh until you cry. The next day, you complete your actual assignment. You meet a former Moroccan army officer, now retired and allegedly bitter. Mossad suspects he has information on Soviet arms shipments being funneled through Algeria. You're to assess, report, and, if possible, recruit. The meeting takes place in a quiet seaside cafe. He's older than you expected, with dark spots on his hands and a permanent squint. You talk football, fishing, and finally, politics. He's careful, cagey. But you listen, ask questions, pretend to agree. Eventually, he says something vague but useful. A route, a shipment date, a name. You memorize it. You buy his coffee. You shake his hand. And that's that. As you prepare to leave Tangier, you walk one last time through the souk. The smells, the sounds, the color. It's all too much and not enough. You buy a small brass trinket shaped like a lion. No reason, just something to remember this version of yourself by. Back on the ferry, you sit alone, watching the Moroccan coastline blur into sea mist. You think about your cousin's laugh, the creaky floorboard, the officer's squint, the diary filled with dreams you'll never return to. And just before sleep takes you, a new thought slips in, something small and heavy and entirely unhelpful. You touch down in Tel Aviv 3 days later, pretending you aren't relieved to hear Hebrew again, even shouted, even by taxi drivers who drive like they've never once seen a brake pedal. The sun's aggressive, the humidity wraps around your neck like a clingy X, and the Mossad safe house smells like canned hummus and stale carpet. It's home, or close enough. Rovin greets you with a grunt and a stack of papers. You didn't die. Congratulations. Sit. He motions toward a metal chair as though offering a throne. The sarcasm is strong with this one today. You sit. He drops the file in your lap. Photos, transcripts, reports. Your work from Tangier. It's already been processed, analyzed, folded into the great machine of intelligence. Your conversation with the retired officer was apparently more useful than you thought. A shipping date you barely registered has already prompted diplomatic cables and something ominous involving Mossad's maritime assets. You don't ask. Still, there's a problem. Rovin taps a photo. Your cousin. The wedding. We got word. Someone's asking questions, not about David Cohen, but about your face. You nod, heart low in your chest. What do we do? Rovin shrugs. You go away again. And so begins the great shuffle. You move from Tel Aviv to a safe house outside Haifa. You're told to lay low, which in Mossad speak means eat tuna from a can and try not to think about the last 10 versions of yourself. They give you a cat. No, seriously. A stray that wandered into the compound. Rovin adopts it, names it Moshe. Moshe chooses you, sleeps on your chest, bites your ankle every morning at 6. You grow fond of him. It's the most honest relationship you've had in years. And during this lull, something shifts. For the first time in months, you're not playing anyone. Not David, not Ezra, not the vaguely Saudi businessman you briefly impersonated in Marseille. You're just a guy. A tired, multilingual, mildly paranoid guy with a sarcastic cat. You cook your own food. You fix a broken hinge. You read an actual novel that doesn't include codes or conspiracies. A French one, of course. Your accent's too good now to ignore. You talk less. Think more. Then the call comes. You're wanted back in the field. But this time, not in disguise. They want you, or rather, the version of you that Mossad now sees as real. You're to act as a liaison, a quiet go-between in sensitive Moroccan-Israeli communications. It's unofficial, which means very official. Because here's the twist. Morocco's King Hassan II isn't exactly opposed to back-channel dealings with Israel. Historians still argue about the depth of these connections. Some say the king provided key intelligence that helped Israel during the Six-Day War. Others insist it was all just plausible deniability and theater. What's clear is that King Hassan was pragmatic. And pragmatism is Mossad's favorite kind of monarchy. So you're pulled into something big. Meetings in hotel lobbies, handshakes with men who wear sunglasses indoors, quiet nods over espresso. No recordings, no transcripts, just spoken words with heavy weight. You're flown to Rome, then to Geneva again. You meet with Moroccan intermediaries, lawyers, businessmen, one guy who claims to be a prince. You play the diplomat, calm, measured, polite. You know when to smile, when to frown thoughtfully, when to pretend you don't understand until they say it again more clearly. Your role is murky. You're not delivering offers. You're reading reactions, testing waters, seeing who flinches when Jerusalem is mentioned, who twitches when Gaza comes up, who drops a fork when the word intelligence sharing is casually floated. And through it all, you hold the line. No slipping, no stories, just the new you. The blank slate with a Moroccan soul and an Israeli badge hidden in his sock. Quirky moment? At one of these meetings, a Moroccan delegate complains about the quality of Israeli couscous. You nod solemnly and agree that yes, the grains lack spiritual cohesion. Everyone laughs. You're still not sure what that meant. The stakes are high. King Hassan wants security. Israel wants intelligence. Both sides want to pretend the other doesn't exist in public. And somehow, you, a kid from Casablanca who once dreamed of becoming a footballer, have become the bridge. One night, after a particularly tense session in Madrid, you sit alone on the hotel rooftop. You smoke a cigarette you told yourself you'd quit. You stare at the stars and wonder how many versions of you are drifting out there like satellites. David, Ezra, the businessman, the courier, the real you, the Mossad you. And then Moshe the cat calls. Not literally. But you imagine his little bitey self and chuckle. This isn't normal. None of this is normal. Historians will never quite grasp what it's like to live like this. They'll debate the strategy, the morality, the geopolitical implications. But they won't know what it's like to sit in a hotel room and pray you've remembered which fake mother you're supposed to mention at dinner. You do. And you nail the speech. Back in Tel Aviv, they're pleased. Not happy, of course. Mossad doesn't do happy. But satisfied. You're good at this. Too good. You get a raise, or maybe just a cleaner apartment. Hard to tell. And just as you start to think, maybe I'm done, Rovin leans in one morning over shakshuka and says, we have a situation. Libya. Of course you do. Even the name feels dangerous. It's like someone turned a desert into a dare and added 3 intelligence agencies, a dictator with a flair for chaos, and a permanent heat stroke. You're told the mission is routine, which, of course, means it absolutely isn't. You're briefed in a room that smells like fresh paint and old panic. Rovin clicks through slides like a bored professor. This man, he says, pointing to a blurry photo of a middle-aged Libyan bureaucrat, is hosting some very loud guests from East Germany, very loud and very curious about Israeli naval movements. You're to go in, observe, and, if possible, get access to some internal chatter. There's a possible leak, a document, a list of ship transfers. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Just another Tuesday. But the real twist? You're not going in as an Israeli, or even as a Moroccan. You're going in as a Tunisian. With a forged background in import-export, a fake cousin who runs a cement company, and a dog named Sami, you're expected to reference once, casually, lovingly, and never again. You've got 48 hours to learn the dialect, fake a limp, and figure out how much you're supposed to hate football to match your character's anti-sport backstory. Apparently, he once got hit by a soccer ball and never recovered emotionally. Mossad handlers have creative flair. Your new identity's name? Habib Al-Tayeb. You hate it immediately. The entry into Libya is tense. You fly into Tunis, then take an overland route into Tripoli. Your cover is airtight. Fake documents, a legitimate Tunisian passport that costs someone 3 months and a questionable favor. You cross the border in a dusty car with 2 smugglers who think you're just another money man looking to grease a few hands. You smile. That's not inaccurate. Tripoli is hotter than you expect. It smells like sea salt and engine fumes. It's also crawling with security, plainclothes types with mustaches and mistrust in their eyes. You check into a small hotel and wait for your contact. The room has 1 window and no curtains. A mirror is screwed to the wall with bolts so tight it screams one-way glass. You smile at it every morning, just in case. Your contact arrives 2 days later. His name is Sami, like the dog. You're not sure if this is hilarious or terrifying. He's young, twitchy, and speaks with a coastal accent that's hard to follow. He works in logistics for a portside company that apparently moves everything from cooking oil to heavy artillery. You meet him at a coffee stand. No names, no questions. He hands you a notebook filled with what looks like shipping logs. Inside, a single phrase circled in red, Project Sand Echo. You raise your eyebrows. He shrugs. They say it's French, but too many Russians involved, and Germans. You nod. Pretend you're interested in supply chains. That night, back in your room, you scan the notebook carefully. There's a pattern in the shipment numbers. Too regular, too efficient. Whatever this is, it's not just commercial cargo. Historians still debate the extent to which Gaddafi's Libya served as a hub for covert military deals during the 1970s. Some argue it was chaos disguised as strategy. Others say there was a strange method to the madness, a desire to gather weapons, yes, but also to disorient foreign intelligence agencies. You'd believe either. What you don't believe is how close you come to getting caught. 3 nights in, you're walking back from a meeting with Sami when a black car pulls up fast. 2 men jump out. They don't say a word, just start checking your ID. You hand it over, calm but cold. Your heart's doing somersaults in your throat. One guy squints at your name. Habib Al-Tayeb. From Sfax? Yes, you say, born near the harbor. What do you do? Import-export, construction materials. What do you really do? You smile. I dodge questions. He doesn't laugh. But then the other guy, maybe senior, waves him off. He's clean. Let's go. They peel away. You exhale so hard your knees shake. You return to your room, sit on the bed, think about escaping. But then Moshe the cat comes to mind, and for some inexplicable reason, the thought calms you. You decide to stay, just a little longer. You meet Sami one last time, this time at a seafront restaurant with grilled fish and overcooked couscous. He looks nervous. You ask what's wrong. They know there's a leak, he whispers. Not you, not yet, but something's happening. You ask what he means. He doesn't answer, just slips you a small cassette tape. No label, he says. Don't play it here. You leave a huge tip, shake his hand, and disappear into the Libyan dusk. Quirky moment? You nearly forget the cassette in the taxi. You realize it halfway through the ride, scream at the driver to stop, and lunge into the back seat like a man possessed. The driver thinks you left your wedding ring or a kidney. You tip him with all the dinars in your wallet. You get out of Libya 2 days later through an unmarked checkpoint near the Algerian border. No drama. No shots fired. Just you, your dusty shoes, and the tape. Back in Tel Aviv, Reuven plays it, slowly, rewinds, plays it again. It's a conversation. Fuzzy but clear enough. A list of ports, a date, and one phrase. Israeli target within 6 months. Reuven turns to you. His face, usually stoic, is tight. You've done well, Habib, he says. You hate that name even more. But you smile, because you're starting to think this might never end. You've barely had time to unpack when Reuven calls you into the Mossad briefing room again. Same sour coffee, same windowless walls, same stack of folders like a silent rectangular jury. You sit across from him, and he doesn't waste time with preambles. You're going to Istanbul. You raise an eyebrow. I just got back from Libya. You want to send me on vacation now? He doesn't smile. It's not a vacation, it's a ghost story. He pushes a file across the table. Inside, a photo, a man in his 40s. Sharp cheekbones, thick glasses, a permanent frown etched into his face like an artist used only a knife. His name is, or was, Said Ben Salam. Allegedly Algerian. Allegedly a translator for the Arab League. Also allegedly dead for the past 5 years. Only, he's very much not. You've seen the footage. Said strolling through the Grand Bazaar like a man browsing for spices, not secrets. His gait, his smirk, his strange affection for folding a handkerchief very precisely before he eats. It's him. So what's the problem? He wasn't just a translator. He used to be one of yours. Not yours as in Mossad. Yours as in Moroccan. Before defecting, disappearing, and possibly selling state secrets to, well, that part's still fuzzy. Now he's back, or maybe he never left. Or maybe this is just a man who looks suspiciously like a dead spy. Your job is to find out, quietly. You arrive in Istanbul on a windy afternoon. The sky hangs low and metallic, like it's thinking about raining but hasn't quite made up its mind. You check into a small hotel tucked behind the Blue Mosque, the kind of place with rickety furniture and tea so strong it could rewire your brain. You spend the first 2 days doing nothing. That's part of it. Linger. Lurk. Let your presence soak into the scenery before you start poking around. You drift through bazaars. Visit mosques. Sip coffee at a rooftop cafe and watch the city breathe. You marvel at how old everything is. Every brick feels older than your entire career. Then on the third day, you see him, Said, standing at a spice stall, arguing about cinnamon prices. You stay back. Watch. He's using a cane now, lightly, more for show than support. He has a small scar under his ear that wasn't there in his Mossad file. You take mental notes. Everything seems normal. Too normal. He pays in cash, smiles at the vendor, moves on. You follow, slowly. He walks like a man who wants to be followed. Historians still argue whether Istanbul in the 70s was the most active crossroads for espionage outside of Berlin. Some say it was a rotating theater of shadow games. Others insist most spies were there simply because the city had good food and plausible deniability. Both are true. You track Said for a week. He goes to bookstores, cafes, sometimes to a bathhouse that, after a little digging, turns out to be owned by a former Turkish intelligence officer. You bribe a cleaner. Confirm it. Yes, he meets someone there. Always the same time, always the same man. Heavyset, Russian accent. You don't need a dossier to guess what that means. And still, you wait, because patience is your weapon. Eventually, an opportunity arrives. Said visits a bar late one night, alone. You slip in 2 stools down, order tea. No alcohol. Watch him. He notices you. Of course he does. You're watching me, he says, without looking. I watch everyone, you reply. You're just more interesting than most. He chuckles. Moroccan, you nod. Israeli. You say nothing. He shrugs. Used to be both. Depends who's asking. You turn to face him. Who are you now? He takes a sip. Thinks no one, he says finally, but in a very valuable way. You talk, carefully. He doesn't confess, but he doesn't lie either. He tells stories. About operations in Tunisia. About being passed around by 3 different agencies like a bottle of cheap cologne. He hints at betrayals, at handlers who disappeared. He talks about you, not by name, but by shape. The type. The young ones who believe in something until the belief turns into a task list. Quirky moment? He offers you a pistachio from his coat pocket. No wrapper, just loose, sad pistachios. You take one anyway. It's surprisingly good. At the end of the night, he says something strange. You'll never really leave the game, even if you do. It'll follow you, change its name, grow a beard, invite you for coffee. You'll say yes. You won't know why. You don't see him again. He vanishes, like smoke from a hot teacup. You report everything. Rovin isn't thrilled. No names, no tapes, no proof. Could be a decoy, he mutters. Could be the real thing. Could be a man buying cinnamon, you say. He doesn't laugh. Still, the intel you gleaned, especially about the Russian contact, sends ripples. 3 weeks later, an arms deal in Bulgaria mysteriously unravels. You're not told the details, just that it ended well. You assume that means somebody else's headache now. You stay in Istanbul for a few more days, walk the Bosphorus, feed stray cats, visit a museum that smells like mold and marble. And on your last night in your hotel room, you catch your reflection and say aloud, "Who are you now?" You don't answer, but the silence feels honest. The next time the phone rings, it's not Rovin. It's someone higher, someone who doesn't usually bother with voices, let alone yours. You're being reassigned, the voice says. Calm, direct, impersonal, like someone reading out the weather report for a city you've never been to. We're putting together a long-term posting. Europe, possibly Spain, possibly Italy. You pause. Posting? Yes, the voice replies. Not infiltration, not surveillance, representation. You wait for the punchline. None comes. They want you visible. After years of hiding, slipping between aliases like second skins, Mossad wants you to step into the light. Half-shadowed, yes, but real. You'd be serving as a public-facing liaison to help build relationships with North African Jewish diaspora groups across Europe. Whispered diplomacy, not espionage. Handshakes over microphones. Names used instead of concealed. They even offer you a real name. Your real name. You say yes. But it doesn't feel like relief. It feels like wearing your own clothes after so long in costume, familiar, but somehow too tight around the chest. They send you to Rome first, under your own identity. You carry a blue diplomatic passport, a phone that doesn't record anyone, and a simple mission: meet community leaders, listen to grievances, and build trust. The Jewish community in Rome is old, fractured, tired. Many fled Tunisia, Morocco, Libya, each group carrying its own ghosts. You meet with rabbis, shopkeepers, grandmothers who grill you for not being married. They ask about Morocco, about Casablanca. They ask if the pigeons still fly over the Medina at dusk like they used to. You smile, nod, say yes, even if you haven't seen them in years. A man named Raphael invites you for tea one afternoon in his small bookstore. He's Libyan Jewish in his 70s and smells faintly of paper and soap. You know, he says, they always ask if we feel Israeli or Arab or Italian, but none of those really fit. We're the pause between questions. You think about that for days. You start writing, not reports, not dossiers, letters, notes, fragments of thought. You scribble about Rome's humidity, about the sound shoes make on cobblestones, about the way identity shifts depending on who's asking. Rovin checks in once. Everything good? Define good, you say. He hangs up. Historians still debate how effective Mossad's softer diplomatic efforts were during this period. Some argue they opened doors that sabotage never could. Others claim it was theater, friendly faces to distract from more ruthless hands. You suspect both are true. You visit Madrid next, then Marseille. A quiet rhythm settles in. Meet, listen, move. You wear fewer disguises, but you speak more carefully. Because now, your own voice is on record. Your own words shape the air. Then, in Paris, always Paris, you're asked to deliver a eulogy. You didn't know the man well. An Algerian Jewish writer who'd worked quietly to bridge Jewish and Muslim communities. He died of a stroke, but some whisper darker causes. You're asked to speak as a representative of both Mossad and the Moroccan Jewish diaspora. You stand in a small courtyard, the mourners dressed in layers of grief and memory. You speak, and halfway through, your voice cracks. Not because you're sad, because you're real. For the first time in years, you're not speaking through someone else's mouth, not channeling a fake life or reciting a rehearsed cover story. You're just you. No pistol, no passport, no exit plan in your sock. And when the ceremony ends, a young woman approaches you. She introduces herself. Translator. Works with cultural archives. You know her face. It's the woman from Paris, the one you left behind. She smiles. You freeze. I thought it was you, she says. David Cohen, right? You smile gently. No, not anymore. Quirky moment? She offers you a piece of mint chocolate. You hate mint chocolate. Always have. But this time, you eat it. And it's not terrible. You walk with her along the Seine, talk about books, about Casablanca, about the way pigeons always seem to know when you're watching them. She doesn't ask questions, not yet, maybe never. That night, you sit by your hotel window, staring out at the city lights. You whisper your own name, softly, like testing the sound of it on your tongue. It fits again, mostly, and for the first time in years, you sleep. Not with one eye open, not with a chair jammed against the door. Just sleep. You wake to rain tapping on the Paris window like a gentle reminder that real life continues, even for people like you. The streets are soaked, shining like mirrors to a city that still believes in its own romance. You stretch, make tea, and for one slow, luxurious moment, you feel entirely off duty. But of course, you're not. A message arrives by courier. hand-delivered to the concierge, slipped under your door in an envelope that smells faintly of cedar and bureaucratic nerves. Inside is a single sentence, written in a typewriter font that screams Reuven. Berlin, Friday. Follow the Russian. You sigh. Goodbye, Paris. Berlin in spring is gray and angular. It wears its history like an overcoat, heavy, hard to remove. You land with minimal fuss. A man greets you at the airport holding a copy of Anna Karenina. Classic spy nonsense. He doesn't speak, just hands you a phone and walks away. The phone rings before you finish your airport coffee. Your target is named Andrei Vlasov, says a voice you don't recognize. Young, sharp, possibly overeager. He works out of the East German consulate under diplomatic cover. We believe he's been making contact with North African student groups, possibly radicalizing, possibly recruiting. Your job isn't to confront him. Not yet. Just follow. Watch. See who he meets. See if your name, or any version of your name, comes up. You spend the next week trailing Andre through Berlin's cold corridors. He's easy to track, overconfident, a little sloppy, like he still believes in the myth of Russian elegance. You watch him buy groceries, smoke with Algerian students outside a university, even dance terribly at a cultural festival. One night, he meets with a man in a long coat who doesn't remove his sunglasses indoors. You photograph the exchange from a hotel balcony, crouched behind a planter full of dead flowers. The photos are grainy, but the face is clear. It's Saeed, your ghost from Istanbul. He's back, and apparently very much in play. You send the photos to Mossad. Reuven responds with a single word. Confirmed. No further instruction. No context. Classic Reuven. You go into deeper surveillance mode, tap hotel phone lines, listen to conversations in Arabic, French, Russian. Saeed is coordinating something, but the purpose is still unclear. The only phrase that stands out, repeated, stressed, urgent, is the list. You don't know what the list is, but you know it's important. Andre meets Saeed again 3 days later, this time in a bookstore cafe of all places. You sit in the far corner with a copy of Don Quixote you pretend to read. They speak in hushed tones. No one notices you, except for Saeed. He glances up just once, locks eyes with you, and smiles. Not a friendly smile, a knowing one, like someone who's read ahead in the script. You don't move. You don't blink. You sip your espresso like a man who has no idea he's just been spotted. After the meeting, you follow them separately. Saeed disappears down into the U-Bahn. Andre heads back to the consulate. You return to your hotel and prepare your notes. At 2 a.m., you wake to find your door ajar. Nothing is missing. Nothing is disturbed. Except one thing. Your old Mossad-issued burner phone, the one from Istanbul. You hadn't even used it in months. You kept it for habit, or maybe nostalgia. It's gone. Quirky moment? Whoever took it left a single item in return. A postcard. A cheesy tourist card showing the Berlin Wall with the words, "Wish you were here," scrawled in red ink. You laugh. Then you double lock the door. Historians still argue how much East German intelligence knew about Israeli spy movements in Berlin during this era. Some suggest there was a secret truce, an unspoken agreement to keep certain agents in play. Others believe it was a full-on cat-and-mouse circus where no one ever quite knew who was leading whom. You believe both, because you are the mouse and the cat, and occasionally the guy watching from the shadows eating salted peanuts. Reuven calls the next morning. Pull back, he says. Why? You ask. Because Saeed knows, and if he knows, the others will too. You were a ghost. Now you're a flag. You don't argue. Instead, you pack, erase, destroy, disappear. But before you go, you make one stop. You visit a small cafe on the edge of Kreuzberg where a North African poetry night is being held. The place smells like cardamom and ambition. Students recite verses in Arabic and French, voices raw with longing. One poem catches your ear, an Algerian girl speaking of the names we wear like borrowed jackets, always one size too large or too tight. You don't cry, but you think about it. You leave Berlin quietly, a red-eye train through Prague, then to Vienna. No planes, no drama. On the train, you write in your notebook, "If I see Saeed again, I won't follow. I'll sit beside him, ask what we both forgot. Maybe we're the same man now, just wearing different coats." And for the first time in your career, you mean it. Vienna is too quiet. After Berlin's metallic rhythm, the Austrian capital feels like a postcard someone left out in the sun. You rent a flat with a view of the Danube, and for 3 days you try to pretend you're just a slightly eccentric Moroccan-Israeli writer with bad posture and an unusual number of locked cabinets. But pretending never lasts. Reuven calls again. This time, no instructions, just a question. How tired are you? You think about lying. Instead, you say, I'm so tired, I put salt in my tea this morning and drank it anyway. He snorts. Good. That means you're ready. You brace yourself. Rome again, he says. But not as you. Not exactly. You blink. Back to aliases? No, back to someone else's alias. You don't like where this is going. They want you to pick up an old identity, one that never belonged to you. A Syrian businessman who died in a car crash 3 years ago. The man's network has been reactivated. Someone's using his name in meetings with arms dealers, and Mossad wants to know who. The problem is, the original operation was run by someone else, someone long gone. You're being inserted as the substitute. It's like stepping into a dead man's coat. Rome again. You arrive on a Thursday. The city is as it always is. Too beautiful, too chaotic, too willing to let you vanish in plain sight. You're Khaled N now, a textile importer from Aleppo with suspiciously good Italian and a limp that comes and goes depending on the terrain. Your first meeting is in a mechanic's garage. No joke. You shake hands over the smell of motor oil and espresso. The dealers are cautious but not suspicious. Apparently, Khaled used to pay on time and didn't ask many questions. You nod, agree, and try not to look like a guy whose real name might not even be on his own gravestone someday. The meeting goes well, too well. They hand you a flash drive, say it contains updated inventory. You nod, leave, get back to the hotel, plug it in, and find photos of yourself. Not Khaled. You, your real self, from Paris, from Berlin, from Tangier, time-stamped, cropped, annotated. Someone's been tracking you, and not just Mossad. You shut the laptop, your hands shake. You call Reuven. I've been burned, you say. He's quiet. Then, not burned, branded. You ask what he means. He sighs. You've become too useful, too recognizable, too many aliases, too many faces. You're turning into folklore. A long pause. Congratulations, he adds. You're a myth now. It doesn't feel like a compliment. Historians still debate whether agents like you ever truly existed, the so-called ghosts with memory, spies who crossed so many lines and wore so many masks they became untraceable to everyone, even themselves. Some think you're composites. Others argue there were many of you, just using the same legend. Both explanations are equally unhelpful to your current situation. You're told to stay put. You don't. You flee Rome in the middle of the night, on foot, with only the cash in your sock and a tiny gold chain someone gave you in Casablanca when you were 15. You make it to Florence, then Milan. Finally, a flight out of Geneva to Tel Aviv, using your actual name for the first time in 6 years. The passport agent double-checks your face. You smile. New haircut. They let you through. Back in Israel, you expect lockdown, interrogation, debrief, maybe even retirement. Instead, they give you a desk, an actual desk, in an office, with a cactus. You are officially no longer field personnel. You're strategic liaison, a title that means everything and nothing. You advise on operations. You rewrite reports to make them sound less insane. You teach new recruits how to fake a limp convincingly. You're safe, or something like it. Quirky moment? On your second day in the office, you find a sticky note on your desk with a drawing of a camel wearing sunglasses and the words, "Don't be boring," are. You don't have to guess who it's from. Weeks pass, then months. You go home before sunset. You buy fresh vegetables. You learn how to use a dishwasher without treating it like a bomb. But you can feel it in your bones, that itch, that tension, the constant need to scan every room, to track every movement, to listen for the sound of footsteps that pause just a little too long behind your door. It doesn't go away. Not really. And then one day, you receive a package. No return address. Inside, a cassette tape, a photo of the Berlin Wall, and a pistachio, loose, unwrapped. You laugh so hard you nearly fall off your chair. But your heart is racing. You play the tape. It's Saeed. His voice, low, calm, deliberate. I thought about saying goodbye, but we both know that's not how this ends. He pauses. You still have a choice. Be the myth, or be the man. You turn off the tape and stare out the window for a long, long time. You don't sleep that night. The tape keeps echoing in your head. Be the myth, or be the man. You stare at the ceiling, thinking about how many people you've been, how many countries you've walked through with other people's names on your lips, how many languages you've spoken in a voice that was never really yours. In the morning, you make coffee like nothing's wrong. You go to the office, smile at the receptionist, nod at the intern who always wears his tie too tight. You sit at your desk and pretend to read reports, but the cassette tape is in your pocket all day, warm against your leg like it's breathing. At lunch, you ask Reuven to meet. He grumbles, but agrees. You sit outside under the shade of a scraggly olive tree. 2 coffees. 1 silence. He sent a message, you say. Reuven doesn't ask who. He knows. You show him the tape. He doesn't ask to listen. He's testing you, Reuven says. Trying to drag you back into the dance. You nod. Do you want to go? You don't answer, because you don't know. Back at your desk, you pull open your bottom drawer. Inside is a small folder marked not to be opened, which, naturally, you've opened many times. It's your emergency alias. A backdoor identity, unregistered, unwritten. A name you helped create years ago in a moment of paranoia and genius. It has everything. Passport, bank access, clothing sizes, even a favorite color. Orange. You don't know why. It's your nuclear option. You put it back in the drawer, for now. Instead, you dive into research. You start pulling files on Saeed, what he's done, where he's been, what patterns emerge. You cross-reference locations, meet times, known contacts, and then you see it, a pattern. Seemingly random visits to art exhibits, always featuring Islamic geometric design, always hosted by museums with uneven security. Historians still argue whether cultural institutions during the Cold War were genuine sites of soft diplomacy or covert nests for intelligence swapping. Most settle on, why not both? You dig deeper and find something strange. A shipment of art pieces from Morocco dating back centuries, scheduled to arrive in Istanbul in 2 weeks. One of the receiving curators, a name you recognize. Once worked as a contact for Moroccan intelligence, now allegedly retired. But here's the twist. 2 of the crates, way more than they should, a lot more. You bring it to Reuven, he scans the document. You want back in, don't you? You shrug. I want to know if I'm still useful. He taps the file, or if you're just trying to chase down the last version of yourself. You both know it's not about the crates. It's about Saeed. So they let you go. Unofficially. You fly to Istanbul on a civilian passport. No handler, no backup. Just you, a pair of sunglasses that don't suit your face, and a pouch of Turkish lira that smells faintly of mothballs and secrets. You rent a flat near the Bosphorus. Small, sparse, but with a view of the harbor where ships drift in and out like thoughts. Your contact, a former Mossad courier now posing as a falafel vendor, greets you with a firm handshake and a plastic bag of the usual. Inside, a burner phone, some Turkish delight, and a small revolver wrapped in newspaper. You've missed this. Not the weapon, not the lies, the precision, that sensation of everything snapping into place, of every sense turning on. The world becoming sharp again like a photo finally brought into focus. You visit the museum 3 days early, walk through the exhibit like a tourist, stare at the tiles, the calligraphy, the symmetry that never breaks, only spirals. And then you see him. Saeed, not hiding, not blending. He's guiding a group, wearing a curator's badge. Of course he is. You trail him. Again. It feels absurd, like the world is looping in on itself. Later that evening, you break into the storage room. You check the crates, tap the panels, find a false back. Inside, not weapons, files, hundreds of pages, thin, crisp, French, Arabic, coded. You snap photos, as many as you can, until the lights flick on, and Saeed is standing there. No weapon, just a cup of tea. You always were impatient, he says. You lower the camera. I thought you'd left the game. I did, he says, but the game didn't leave me. You sit, he pours tea. No one moves. Quirky moment? He adds cardamom to your cup. You hate cardamom. You drink it anyway. It burns. You talk. Not about missions, about Casablanca, about languages, about Mossa the cat, which makes him laugh for the first time in years. And then he says it. The list. They want it back. Who's they? He shakes his head. They changes. He offers you the files. Give it to your people. Let them clean it up. I'm done. You don't trust him, but you take it. You walk out into the Istanbul night. Files under one arm, history under the other. You don't look back. Not this time. Back in Tel Aviv, everything feels smaller. Not physically, just quieter. The buildings lean in less. The sky presses down softer. Even Reuven's voice sounds like it's been dialed down a few notches. You hand him the files from Istanbul. He whistles low, the kind of sound he makes when something is either brilliant or a complete nightmare. These were buried, he mutters, flipping through pages like he's speed reading someone's will. Names, locations, accounts, old plans, some still active. This could undo half a decade's worth of buried ghosts. You shrug. Said wanted it out. Reuven pauses. Or he wanted us holding the hot coal instead of him. Fair. Either way, the information is real. Mossad launches a quiet sweep. Nothing flashy, just a careful mop-up of old leaks, double agents who've aged into desk jobs, and foreign operatives who thought they'd been forgotten. You're offered a medal. You refuse. You're offered a raise. You ask for a cat instead. They say no. Still, you get a new desk. Bigger, closer to the window. More interns start calling you sir, which makes you cringe. You give one of them a lengthy lecture on how to spot a forged Moroccan passport. He asks if this will be on the final. You stare at him until he leaves. But the itch returns. It always does. You spend your evenings walking the coastline, listening to the ocean murmur secrets to the rocks. Sometimes you write in your notebook. Fragments, thoughts. One night you write, "Being a spy is just being lonely on purpose." Historians still debate whether ex-agents ever truly leave the world behind. Some insist they melt into civilian life, trading tradecraft for tax forms. Others argue they remain half awake forever, eyes always scanning, ears always tuned to the frequency of betrayal. You live somewhere in between. Then one morning, an envelope arrives. No return address. But inside, a plane ticket. Casablanca. You stare at it like it might detonate. Alongside the ticket, a note. 3 words. Time to remember. You board the flight. You haven't been back in 20 years. As the plane descends, the landscape opens like a memory you'd sealed too tight. Terracotta rooftops, narrow alleys, the ocean sparkling like it's been rehearsing for your return. You breathe it in, and it hurts, because it smells like something you loved once and weren't sure you were allowed to miss. You check into a small hotel near the Medina, no aliases, just your name, printed in black on the reservation slip. The clerk squints at it, then smiles. Haven't seen that one in a while. You wander the old streets. The bakery still sells the same sesame cookies. The barber shop still has the photo of the king taped to the mirror. You pass the house you grew up in. It's pink now, with a satellite dish. A kid kicks a soccer ball against the wall and shouts when you don't kick it back. You meet someone in a cafe the next day. She's older than you remember, but the eyes are the same. Your sister. She knew you were coming. You don't ask how. She orders mint tea and pretends it's not strange that the two of you haven't spoken since the night you left. She tells you your mother kept your room the same until the day she died. You nod. Sip your tea. Try not to fall apart. Why now? She asks finally. You pause. Because the game stopped and I needed something real. Quirky moment? She pulls out a photo. Faded, creased, ridiculous. It's you, age 7, dressed as a pirate for Purim, using a ladle as a sword. You laugh so hard the table shakes. She keeps it in her wallet. That night, you walk the city. No mission. No surveillance. Just you. And somehow that's the strangest role you've ever played. You stay a week. Help fix a roof. Read a book. Learn how to make couscous the right way, which apparently involves steam, patience, and surrendering your ego. You tell the local kids wild stories about your job with the government, careful never to mention just which part of the government. They think you're boring. You love it. Then, before you leave, you visit your mother's grave. It's quiet, shaded by olive trees. You leave a note, just 3 words. I came back, and you mean it. Back in Tel Aviv? The air feels thinner somehow, like something has been lifted, or maybe left behind. You return to your desk, your cactus now slightly tilted from someone overwatering it, and try to pick up where you left off. But you're not quite the same. You find yourself saying less in meetings, listening more. Watching the young recruits fumble their way through simulations you could have done in your sleep a decade ago. You're the ghost in the corner now, the quiet one with the strange, faraway look in his eye. It suits you. You're asked to give a lecture at the academy. Topic, lessons from the field. You think about skipping it, but something pulls you in. You stand before the eager faces, fresh uniforms, polished boots. You clear your throat and begin with, "Never trust a man who offers you a pistachio from his pocket." They laugh. Then you tell them about Istanbul, about the false crates, about Said. Not the real details, of course, just enough to make it sound like a fable. They eat it up. You finish with, the game isn't about outsmarting people, it's about outlasting yourself. They don't know what to make of it, but a few of them write it down. That's enough. One evening, you walk into your apartment and notice something strange. A package, wrapped in newspaper. No name. No note. You open it carefully. Inside, a chessboard, wooden, hand-carved. One of the pawns is missing. You smile. There's only one person who would do something that cryptic. You send a message through a secure channel. Just coordinates, no words. A week later, you meet in a small bar in Tangier, the kind with bad lighting and worse jazz. Saeed is there before you, sipping something that looks like disappointment. He doesn't say hello. He moves a knight forward on the board. You sit. Counter with a bishop. The game is slow. Thoughtful. Neither of you mentions names, agencies, or countries, just pawns and silence. Finally, he speaks. I'm tired. You nod. Me too. Do they know you're here? Do they know you're here? He shrugs. I don't think they care anymore. You believe him. For the first time in years, you talk like old friends. You compare notes, not about missions, but about people. A handler who always wore socks with cartoon animals. A safe house in Lisbon with the world's worst coffee. The one time you both ended up in Tunisia without realizing you were chasing the same man. Historians still argue whether rival agents ever formed bonds that went beyond mutual survival. Some say yes, unlikely friendships forged in the pressure cooker of lies and stakes. Others insist it was all strategy. You know the truth is murkier. It always is. The next morning you wake to a note. One day we'll play again. For real this time. Maybe with stakes. Maybe just for fun. Underneath it, the missing pawn. Quirky moment? He carved your initials into the bottom. You pretend not to notice. But you carry it in your pocket the rest of the trip. Back in Tel Aviv, you update your file. Add new intel. Reflag 2 dormant contacts. Your job now is to be the compass for others, to quietly point the way, even if you're no longer walking it yourself. But the path still calls. You start writing again. Not reports, not debriefs, a story, yours. You change the names. Twist the endings. Make it all sound just fantastical enough to pass as fiction. You call it The Man from Nowhere. You don't plan to publish it, but you write, page after page, because you're still not sure which parts were real. And that's okay. You keep your passport valid. You keep a packed bag in your closet. You still glance twice at black cars parked too long. But you also start cooking. You take a ceramics class. You adopt a cat. You name it Mossa. Naturally, life settles. Kind of. Sort of. You never stop being a spy. Not really. You just start being something else at the same time. Time passes in strange ways for people like you. The calendar moves, the seasons change, but your brain is still wired to mark time by operations, not holidays. You don't remember birthdays, but you remember the exact shade of blue on a diplomat's tie the day a deal fell through in Madrid. Still, something shifts. You begin to teach more. Not just at the Mossad Academy, but occasionally at universities. Quiet, private lectures under names that aren't quite yours, where you talk about security history to students who think spies wear tuxedos and drive Aston Martins. You correct them, gently. You tell them a story about a man who once used a harmonica to hide a microfilm. Another about how a well-timed sneeze prevented a major diplomatic incident. You let them believe some things are exaggerations. Some of them are. Most of them aren't. You take longer walks these days, down to the port, up Mount Carmel when you visit Haifa. You learn the names of birds. You finally admit you like cardamom, though you'll never thank Saeed for the introduction. One night, you get a letter. An actual letter. Paper, ink, envelope. No return address. Just your name, written in handwriting that somehow looks both elegant and slightly rushed. Inside, a single sentence. The museum in Tangier is opening a new wing. I thought you might want to see the tiles. No signature. You book a ticket. In Tangier, the streets feel both familiar and new, like someone repainted your memories while you weren't looking. The museum is small, beautiful, and barely attended. The tiles are exquisite, mathematical poetry in ceramic form. You stand there, admiring the symmetry, when a voice beside you says, "Still looking for patterns?" You don't jump. You don't have to. It's Saeed, older, grayer, but still with that knowing smile, like he just remembered a joke you both heard 20 years ago. You walk the exhibit together. You don't talk about intelligence or politics or even memory, just color, design, the way certain shapes never quite fit unless viewed from the right angle. Before you part, he asks, "You ever figure out who you really are?" You smile. "Not exactly, but I think I've narrowed it down." He laughs. "You'll get there." You never see him again. But then again, you never really saw him to begin with. That night, you return to your hotel. You write. You eat a cookie that's far too sweet. You watch the waves roll against the shore and think, "This is enough." Maybe for the first time. Wind down uttered words. Now close your eyes. Let the edges of the story soften. Let the tiled corridors of Tangier blur into warm light, into hush, into nothing. Feel the sea breeze on your skin, gentle and salty, whispering secrets in a language you don't need to translate anymore. You've walked a long road, haven't you? Across continents, through back doors and backstories, behind masks and beneath many names. But here, now, you can let them all go. The agent, the myth, even the man. Let the silence settle around you like a blanket, safe, familiar, and entirely yours. No ticking clocks, no coded signals, just the breath of a sleeping city and the soft rhythm of your own heartbeat. It's okay not to know exactly who you are. Some people spend their whole lives playing characters and still find peace in the spaces between roles. Let that peace be yours. Let the memory of pistachios, crooked passports, and late-night chess games slip gently into dream. Because the work is done now. The mission's over. You've come home. And home, after all, isn't a place. It's a moment like this. Still, whole, yours. Sleep well. End of script. Sweet dreams.